Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And it was only yesterday that we explained the fact that we're going to make the blog, at least in my opinion, far more efficient by no longer facilitating these email distributions, which is, like I said, long since been done away with on most other blogs. I guess I'm always late to the party. But I know one thing, it's going to make it a lot more efficient for me because I am sick and tired of having wasted, an ungodly number of hours every time the plugin that I mentioned yesterday that's escaping me from Jetpack has an update. As I mentioned, it tends to not cohesively get along with other plugins and cause problems, and particularly it's the email distribution, and I have called a halt to that. So as I said yesterday, that's caused me to delay posting things in the belief that it might get remedied. I am no longer going to invest any time or energy on getting it remedied. So we're going ahead with LSP and other related posts, and today we're going to divulge the fact that about 10, 12 days ago, I got an anonymous email, which I tend to do from time to time, and it referenced the fact that, well, first of all, let me say that unfortunately, Mr. Montgomery, who was the district attorney in St. Tammany Parish, recently passed away, and so as a result, they're having to have a special election to fill his unexpired term, and everything I have heard about Mr. Montgomery has all been very complimentary, so I would imagine that's a big loss for St. Tammany Parish, which itself has been beset by a whole bunch of recent problems, in that the coroner has been arrested, a prior sheriff was arrested, the district attorney was arrested. I think they're all now serving time. So St. Tammany has its share of corruption. We know that. Otherwise, these folks would not have been provided with other living accommodations. But at any rate, I got this anonymous email that said that one candidate who is in the race to replace former DA Montgomery, specifically Collin Sims, has apparently placed a number of billboards throughout the parish, and we're going to provide you with a prominent photo of it'll be in the actual feature of the billboard that is most clear, not that any of them were that unclear that we were sent, but they depict pictures of Louisiana State troopers, and certainly more than subtly make the suggestion that the troopers are essentially endorsing Mr. Sims in his quest to become the district attorney. Now, he is filling the position in an interim capacity even now. So he is the district attorney. He stepped into that when Mr. Montgomery regrettably passed away. But at any rate, that sort of thing is strictly prohibited. The sheriff, the troopers are not permitted to support any given candidate, and there's been, oh my God, I'll talk briefly as we wrap up this video, but there's been a lot of litigation over that fact. So at any rate, what I did is I reached out to the Louisiana State Police Commission because I had been told that they had stepped their toes into the water onto this, and again, another anonymous email came once I had let it be known that I was certainly wanting to know the Louisiana State Police Commission's reaction to this, and they were gracious enough to send me a copy of the letter, and I took a photo of it because I'm not going to compromise the identity of not even an email address, but at any rate, took a photo of it. We're going to, as they would say, we're going to read it into the record. It is on State Police Commission letterhead. It is dated January 20th, 2024. It's addressed to Mr. Collin Sims, who is, as I said, the DA at present and running to fill the unexpired term of Mr. Montgomery. And so again, it's dated January 20th, 24, and here's what it says. Dear Mr. Sims, as members of the Louisiana State Police Commission, we are writing to ask you to cease and desist from using the photograph of Louisiana State troopers that you have incorporated into your campaign. You have to forgive me, I'm sliding back and forth. Advertisements. In the original footage, the state troopers in that photograph were standing together outside of a courthouse following the conviction of a murderer. Your campaign has used that photograph in a false light to depict those troopers as standing in support of your campaign. This was done so without their permission. The Louisiana Constitution specifically prohibits classified members of the state police force from engaging in political activity. Had those troopers who are pictured given their consent for you to use their images adjacent to you on billboards and in other campaign propaganda, their actions would be considered prohibited political activity. State troopers risk discipline up to and including termination for violating this law. Most importantly, or more importantly, this provision of the Louisiana Constitution was created in order to maintain a police force that represents all citizens of the state of Louisiana and not specific party or candidate in the political realm. It is our sincere wish and expectation that you will honor these state troopers and remove that photograph from your campaign materials. And there is the signature of all of, or at least I believe all of the State Police Commission members. And we're going to provide that, we're going to embed it in the article. And you know, I mentioned a moment ago that we would cover, there's been much litigation over all of this, none of which would be out there, I'm just going to say it, were it not for Sound Off Louisiana. So we're going to just provide links for these prior articles, but I'm going to just tell you the Louisiana State Troopers Association is suing the Louisiana State Police Commission because they believe that they should have the right to do what clearly is impermissible as per that letter that you just saw go out by the commission to the Collin Sims campaign. That they actually had a one-day bench trial for that matter in Judge Johnson's courtroom, which, if I remember right, was around mid-November of last year. And I attended it, and I also got a transcript of it. I actually figured that Judge Johnson was going to rule in favor of the Troopers Association, notwithstanding the fact that I thought that Lenore Feeney posed far more authoritative arguments in her presentation, not the least of which is that if you want to make this, and I think this is probably her strongest argument, if you want to make this legal, then it's very simple. You go get the Constitution to be amended. And of course that would require a 2/3 vote of the legislature and then a majority vote of the public. But at any rate, Judge Johnson did surprise me. He did not rule in favor of the State Troopers Association, and he ruled in favor of the Louisiana State Police Commission, and that matter is presently on appeal with the First Circuit Court of Appeals. Once we find out their ruling, we'll certainly let you know. The appeal is, you know, I said, yeah, it was, I guess, mid-November of last year. I guess it's been a year. I don't know. Time goes by, and then sometimes it seems to go slow. It's hard to, now that I think about it, I think it may have been 2022. It was. Boy, I tell you what, over a year. Good golly. But at any rate, I've not seen anything recorded in 19th JDC as far as a decision by the First Circuit. I'll check the next time I'm by there. But at any rate, beyond that, when Governor Edwards was elected, there was a big brouhaha, that three commission members had, in fact, this is like do as I say, not as I do. 3 commission members were removed for having made impermissible. It's not just impermissible for the troopers, it's also impermissible for members of the police commission. And nevertheless, 3 of those members had made campaign contributions, and so newly incoming Governor Edwards, by way of the head of his super PAC, T. Taylor Townsend, said, "I see no alternative but for these," now he didn't use these words, "gentle appointees, to either voluntarily resign or a hearing be held." Subsequent to that, and we'll give you links for these features because I'm not going to go into the details of them, but subsequent to that, longtime retired Trooper Leon Bucky Miet happened to come across what he believed was strong evidence that 3 current members, well, 2 still current members, 1 has since resigned, also made impermissible campaign activities, one of whom happened to be a gentleman named Jared Caruso Rickey, who is probably the most controversial member of the commission. I'll let it go at that. And so he made a call for the 3 of them to step down, said it's nothing personal, but you fine folks have done this and you need to step down. And so Mr. Rickey, who isn't bashful about responding on something like that, and we'll give the link for that feature, he subsequently let it be known to Mr. Miet. He told him to his face as part of his commentary that he was grandstanding and that his accusations were false. And we published all of the material that Mr. Rickey supplied to establish his firm conviction that he did nothing wrong. There's still more campaign material, but that's the high points. I'm going to give you the links for those features. But let me just say this, now that I mention this, since it is St. Tammany Parish, I don't know what is causing it. Maybe it's this campaign. I don't know. Maybe all I know is there are an awful lot of hits go into the features that we have done on Jared Rickey, and I do mean a lot. But while I'm at this, I'm going to mention, it was about May of last year, I went on, you remember yesterday I talked about stats and the fact that the one reason I can't just completely flush Jetpack, which quite frankly I would love to do, but it does a darn good job of keeping the stats on the posts that you make. And about May of last year, there was an unbelievable spike in features that involved Jared Rickey. And I wondered where in the world, because these were old posts, these were not recent posts. And I wondered, now where in the world, and like I said, it was about May of last year, I knew something had to be up. Well, as it turns out, there was a young lady, and forgive me, I do not remember her name, and she does these crime blogs, and she did I believe it was a 14-episode feature about Mr. Rickey. Once I found out, and she referenced sound off in the blog. She referenced the infamous confrontation, probably the most combative thing I've ever filmed in the history of the blog. She played that between a gentleman named Lloyd Grafton, a former commission member, and Rickey, and it was pretty heated. And then also she provided former Lieutenant Bucky Miet's challenging of Rickey and the response thereof. We're going to provide the link to her series because I binge watched it. Once I saw where this was coming from, I went through all 14 episodes in about a weekend, and maybe I think it extended on into Monday. 14, phenomenal episodes. This young lady did an absolutely phenomenal job. I cannot praise the thoroughness of what she did, not just because she referenced sound off and caused an explosion in hits, that carried on for weeks. But she literally pounded the pavement in trying to track down some information about a cell phone. Very briefly, Jared Rickey's former business partner, Bruce Kuchera, was murdered in New Orleans, and there's all kinds of speculation, and I'm going to let it go at that, because you can either go and listen at her episodes or let it go. Naturally, a lot of the speculation centers around Rickey. I'm not going to make any comment about what my opinion on that is, because I don't think it's relevant. I will say that of the 14 episodes, I was most swayed by episode 6. I'm not going to tip my hat on how it swayed me one way or the other, but it did. We'll also provide you with a link for something we've already previously presented. It was not something original from Sound Off, but it was Brain Scratch, which is also another big feature that deals with Jared Rickey, and substantial rewards offered by the family of Mr. Kuchera if his murder can be solved. And there's one other, because we're talking about St. Tammany Parish. A relative of mine called me up out of the blue and said, "Well, I didn't know you were famous." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he referenced another crime blog, and that one had to do with a former assistant district attorney in St. Tammany Parish. And that lady turned up dead in a very plush subdivision. Whew, boy, I tell you what, there's another one that I couldn't resist binge listening to, and we're going to provide you with the link for it. Now, this is kind of ancient history, because if I remember right, she was murdered in the mid-90s or perhaps the early 90s, but boy, you would not believe all of the twists and turns that take place in that particular matter. So, for anyone that thinks that St. Tammany is a sleepy little parish, I'm here to tell you there's quite a bit, of controversy within St. Tammany Parish, but we're glad to now be back presenting features. I've got more on state police that I want to come out with in the ensuing days, because like I said, that whole jetpack situation really, as you'd say, crimped my style. And I can just tell you, I'm not cut out for going into community tech forums and bulletins or whatever the case, and trying to nudge my way in with a bunch of 20-somethings. Y'all can tell I'm triple their age, and what's aggravating is even if you get the problem solved, it's not like you advanced. All you did was get you back where you were before they messed it up in the first place. I appreciate y'all letting me vent a little bit, because I feel like to me, all of that is wasted time. And I know they're talking about, well, we got AI coming out, AI is going to change everything. All I know is I'm looking at the news, and we can't even keep cabin airplane doors from flying off in mid-flight. So I'm not so sure we're doing the greatest job of just basic blocking and tackling. So, I mean, maybe AI is going to take over everything. I don't know. I'm being told that's going to be the case, and it certainly better be the case based on some of the stock prices of those companies that would hugely, presumably benefit, namely IBM, Advanced Micro Devices. I mean, we're talking about stocks that have exploded all over this alleged artificial intelligence craze that we are about to be hit with. It's somewhat reminiscent to the 2000 era about Y2K and old economy versus new economy, and that while some of that took effect, I don't think any of our lives have been that drastically altered in these 24 years. But that's just my take. All I know is what I dealt with Jetpack, and his blog referred me back to the old days when anytime there was any kind of upgrade for the computer, you could bet something was going to be royally messed up. And that was the case for me, but we're back up and running. So we've covered this little episode involving the St. Tammany parish race. I'm going to get a public record from the State Police Commission tomorrow at 10 a.m. that I have been anxiously awaiting. It took them about 2 weeks to fulfill it, so there may have been considerable redacting or whatnot, because they normally get it to me a lot faster than that. I'll be very complimentary of Jason Hanneman and his crew over there, but I'm anxious. I'm not going to comment on it right now because I've not read the first page of what I've asked for. But I am anxious to get it, and then I'm anxious to be able to present a feature, but I want to be as well informed as possible on the nature of that feature. So that's going to wrap it up for this St. Tammany Parish DA's race. I believe the election is, don't hold me to this, I didn't prepare any notes for any of this. I have nothing in my hands. I did pull up that letter, and we're going to embed it into the feature. But I believe the race is sometime around March 23rd, give or take. I may be off a day or so, but you know, these off elections to fill unexpired terms, typically turnout is very low for those, but that may be an exception here, particularly if all of the activity that has recently been, I can just tell you there's a lot of activity on Jared Rickey related posts. I have no idea why. It started about 2 weeks ago, and it's been pretty steady every day. I don't know where those hits are coming from. They're not nearly as large as for the lady that I told you about, that we're going to give you the link for her blog dedicated exclusively to Mr. Rickey. So that'll do it. I want to thank everybody once again. For those of you who did like getting the email alerts, I'm sorry, I can only put up with so much frustration out of a plug-in like Jetpack. And I'm not going to spend countless hours trying to resolve that sort of thing, because my time is far more efficient in producing these features, not in spending hours upon hours trying to recover from some fiasco that some 20-something. I'm sorry for the young audience. I apologize if I've offended you, but I really do get aggravated when things are working fine and an update comes out and you can take it to the bank. Lately, things don't work fine after that. So thank you, and we will look forward to bringing you another feature on Louisiana State Police probably toward the middle of next week. I have several to come up, but I'm really wanting to see what I get from that public records request tomorrow at 10 a.m. to decide which one will be next. But trust me, we got some things that we're ready to bring out. So thank you once again, and today is Thursday, so hope everyone, we're close enough to the weekend, hope everyone has a very enjoyable weekend. Thank you, and we'll see you again sometime next week.